to try to overcome the best they knew how under the leadership that they had. But their leader was scared to death, and rightfully so, because thought that since I had come on their property that I was after her students. And I can see how she would think that, because the potential does exist that if any of her students could see what we had to offer, she would lose her students. But what disappointed me the most was her. I mean, why she wouldn't have asked me questions and let me hang myself. If she'd been worth anything, she would have asked me all kinds of questions and let me hang myself. But it's like something with her that was not her would not dare ask us a question.
She knew.
Because she knew. That's right. Would not dare ask us a question. And I felt like space aliens had put chips in those sweet students of hers to block them from receiving the information. And I wept. Right in front of them, I wept, and I felt like a fool. And when I was doing it, I thought, she's going to think I'm doing this as some kind of emotional. I visited in their dormitory, and I used their BC, and the vibes were great, and they were. You can't go out in the world and retreat or any place else and find a place that doesn't feel better than their place. And I was really touched by it. But I was so sorrowful. And then I got the second dose of it when not one of them showed up at the Eureka meeting. It was just like, I think also they came into some money. And so I think they're very protective of that, thinking that anybody that's going to visit them must have their eye on that money. And I think they even wonder, why in the world are they interested in us? And at one time the teacher said to me several times, in front of everybody, our students as well, said, well, we never proselyte. Now, we never proselyte. And I felt like what she was really saying, why are you here proselyting? And yet we weren't proselyting. We just sat and let them say what they wanted to say, because what can we say when they weren't asking any questions? We said 2 or 3 little things, and what was funny, when we did say 2 or 3 little things, the students all sat up on the edge of their seat and listened very. And then when the teacher would start talking, then they'd go, because they'd heard all that a zillion times. It was a sad experience. It really was. Listen, Chandra, you wrote a couple things down that I was going to bring up. Yes, if you're going to go into Canada, you need some sort of proof of citizenship in order to return. You need a birth certificate or a driver's license or a passport or some kind of legal ID. It helps if you have something that has a picture on it.
We sent it away when I came into class because it was about ready to expire in the beginning of June. I have nothing with a picture.
Well, you could pick one up on the way. You can go to any DMV and get a $2 or $3 ID, which has your name and picture, and it'll work.
Washington is fine.
What's that? God
Washington is fine.
Okay. God
I have a driver's license, doesn't have a picture.
No picture. It does help to have some picture. I don't think that they'll doubt that you're a citizen.
I have a birth certificate.
Even when, now birth certificate does work, even though they do suggest that you have some sort of picture ID, but I know they'll take birth. The ones that they usually question, like they questioned Scotti when he was returning because of the color of his skin and all, and I just wanted to be sure he was a U.S. citizen.
He pulled out.
He pulled out hers, and what did the guy say to it?
He said, well, bye, and he called
her name. he called her vehicle's name. The guy at the border patrol or whatever it was called Coyote by her vehicle's name. So that shows you how stiff they are. They're not really that stiff. But ideally, you just want to have some sort of ID. Question?
Yes, is it still appropriate that we're protecting our own environment? Like, for instance, here today, we can tell them additional information. But I always feel like, it feels right in a sense to me. I don't know if I'm blinded by something that unless they ask the question, they still don't get everything they know.
That's right.
But then, it seems like
even with this poster, that doesn't mean all of a sudden we're committed to go force everybody to listen to everything we might have to say. I mean, if they keep asking, we have to answer honestly, even if it means they might turn around and say, well, then get out of my church.
right. So if let's say we're looking for lodging, I get to go to a church looking for lodging, then may or may not be appropriate to...
I don't think that's changed at all.
Right.
I think what you're saying now is still just as true.
Okay.
I don't think anything has changed. But you can go further. And then, of course, what you're focusing on for your meetings and publicity for your meetings is a lot bolder than it has ever been before.
Right.
I just had this crazy thought.
Okay?
I don't know if it's right. Would it be right to go to some church as it's letting out and just walk around holding the posters up in kind of the way that we do at some of the psychic fairs? And wait for somebody to come and ask us something.
Well, you certainly couldn't. I don't quite know the answer to that because we haven't participated in it. And I suspect that if we get ignored, it won't be long till we'll be doing that. You know what I'm saying? If we continue to get ignored to a degree, now we could probably handle it better if you put it in the hands of all of the news instruments in the town. The newspapers, the radio shows, the television, and they start talking about it and they come to your meeting. If that still doesn't do anything, then we'll probably be more militant. Our militancy is to go out and hand it out. Or at the Christian bookstore instead of the New Age bookstore.
Then, is there anybody right now doing something with the major networks or the major national talk shows and things like that?
No, we have tried, but on the other material. But I'm glad you brought it up, and because Branody and Aniody like very much trying to do that. And we can let them start over with the new poster, because they like to send all that stuff off with a letter to Oprah and all those other. Why not? Glad you brought it up.
Just wanted to check that it's more probably, would you say we need to leave by 9?
Yes, we need to go, I think, pretty quick.
Okay, well, about that transmission thing.
Oh,
Can just do it tomorrow.
Are we ready?
Posters.
Yeah, why don't we do it? Do you think it'd be okay? Do you think there's a telephone that we can do a transmission on?
Downstairs.
Okay.
No. Could be wrong, but it's part of a phone system, and it doesn't let you use the phone.
Would it be any problem to do it downstairs?
No.
Don't think
I
there's
don't know if the
anybody.
lady's still here, we can talk about it.
You want to check?
Sure.
Okay.
We okay, the lady that gave us this, okay, using the phone.
Okay. Well, we have been telling the groups that we have redone the UFO poster and this one, and made a few changes today, and they want to see it, and so we want to get it on the host. So, the host and the Holy Ghost.
I wound up with group 4, I believe, fear manuals. And so I don't know if it's something that...
Yes, we'll take them.
Okay.
We'll take them.
I just wanted to say that I'm really excited about sharing this information. I just don't know what I'm going to say yet.
Don't know what?
I just don't know what I'm going to say.
That's all right. Don't worry about
It's
it.
just to be a challenge.
Don't worry about it.
It's just to be a pipeline.
Just be honest. Be open. Don't worry about it.
I'm not worried.
The only fear I had when Shinobi brought up not being tortured, the only real fear I think is when the modern version is they throw you in a psych ward. They say you're crazy, you ain't Thorazine or whatever. That would be the only fear I could, but I don't think.
That is false too, because you're not doing anything that would justify it. You're not running, screaming down the street, throwing things at people, causing any problems. You know, we're living as normal people do. We're causing nobody any difficulty. There's no ground that anybody has. I mean, no matter how crazy we are in their eyes, we are not, our behavior is not interfering with anyone. So they would have no grounds. We also have 2 or 3 lawyers who just as late have offered to come to our service for different meetings. And I really was eager for that to happen, and now we've got 3 have said, you know, if you guys need anything, well,
Is this one from the Shasta group?
yeah, actually 2
Two
from
from the
Shasta,
Shasta
yes,
group.
and one from, where was the other one from? Yes.
He gave a $50 check and
That Shasta group is weird. Still trying to figure out what happened there.
Isn't that strange? That's very-
And they all clapped when we...
Such a good performance.
Yeah,
Like we were
Exactly.
the circus show coming through. We were the circus coming through for them. That's what I felt. You know,
But
like,
they were-
and they were like, okay, you know, that's a great show. Have a good one.
Well, and you've got to realize that they consider Shasta to be the theater. And the Shasta is the theater for every so-called pursuit of enlightenment to come and do their thing. And
But they don't do anything. You know, nothing happens there,
well,
as far as I can
they
tell.
don't do us any harm. And they're
No,
paid us
no.
$60.
But no, that wasn't the word. No, but it was like,
I know what you mean.
yeah, it's just,
John was so reinforced everything that we were to the whole group, and yet he didn't get it.
No, that's right. And yet he wanted them to support you more than they were. And yet couldn't see what it could have meant to him. That's why I'm suspicious. I am suspicious that there are implants of block there. I am really suspicious that something has actually been put in there to keep them from acting. It's like we will get these letters from people in Australia. We got letters from Australia who said, this just strikes a chord in me. I've never heard this. I believe every word in that statement. I've waited all my life for this kind of thing. And then they would see the tapes and they would do all this, and then we would say, okay, now are you ready to respond? And they'd say, oh yes, what's next? And then we would tell them, and they'd say, oh, I can't do that. You know, and it's like, then what did you hear when you listened to the tape? You know, what did you read when you read this thing? How could you say you believe every word of that to be true? And then when we tell you that's what you have to do, then, oh no, I can't do that. But then, so they would get offended. And then a week or 2 later, we'd hear from them again. They say, please don't mark me off your list. You know, it's like, and we're stunned. We don't know what to do.
Do you think that the next level would let the Luciferian forces actually block their deposit or that vehicle from accepting the soul that was supposed to be assigned to it?
I don't know, but I think before we leave, we'll know the answer to it. I don't know. It might be that at a certain turn of events, now let me put it this way, when I say turn of events, let's say that all of a sudden there is a real upscale of plagues, you know, like AIDS takes a big new turn, or this new cell-eating virus, and North Korea starts dropping nuclear bombs, and if they learn about us, and people start taking sides, some saying the masses could then start being against us, and then some come to our rescue, because there's always a bunch of people who don't come in until they come to the rescue of the underdog, the mistreatment. And when that all gets out front, so that it's active, something that's going on, I think a lot of these will start saying, I've got to do something, I can't sit here. They don't realize that they're just in a stalemate condition. And some of the ones that might surprise them the least, like even some of the children of some of these who say, I can't leave because of my child. And it might be the very child who gets up and says, I'm going to go with them. So this is all around the corner for us. Because we're just getting out here. This has all just been prep up to this time, as far as I'm concerned. This is just getting out there. We took it out to, in New York, they take all the shows out to Montana, Pennsylvania. What are all the towns that used to be the ones that they used as you remember? Huh? The towns that they would preview shows at when they were trying them out before. Buffalo, certainly. I don't know what they are, but I feel like what we've done up to now has just been pretty much prep for us.
Earlier, Roberta and I were discussing enrollment at churches. There was a question about visiting Mormon churches. Is there something about Mormon churches around?
Not down there. I don't see that. They're a little different structure. They don't have a paid pastor.
Right. What do they call their pastor, like a bishop or something?
Well, a bishop is somebody who's over a number of wards in a town. A town is sectioned off into wards. And they'll have one LDS church over in this ward, and then another one, and then they have a council, certain ones that have been in the church for some time that have gotten to be kind of leaders in the community that are LDS and have been in it for some time. They will get up and do the sermon and do this and take various responsibilities. But they don't have somebody who's like a professional preacher, a priest.
I recall in Albuquerque, somebody, a bishop or somebody in the office out. It's surprised to say it was Mormon church.
Well, the bishop usually has taken a lot of classes in the church and maybe even spent a lot of time in class at the temple in Salt Lake or someplace, and knows a lot of the secret practices and things and secret beliefs of the Mormon church. Huh? Big, and some of them have several wives still, and and still believe that Jesus had two wives. Some of them believe Jesus had two wives, and that Jesus' heavenly Father had a wife. And now this is all a mistranslation of when vehicles are taken by members to the next level. Before they're awakened, they have had that. They've done that. In other words, when Jesus said, I'm Son of Man, he meant, I'm a son who came into the kingdom of heaven from a civilization that calls that level of life man. I'm a son I'm a product of that experiment that humans or that they know as man. And so, as you come from the human kingdom, then you go through things that humans go through, which is playing the game of the family man and having wife and kids and all that, and you may do that even several times, even after first receiving some nourishment. Now, this is the only little thought I get on these Australian correspondents and things like that who say that they believe all this, but they can't do it, and yet they don't want us to stop writing to them. They want to keep on their list. When you did the article in USA Today, there were a lot of people who simply wrote in and said, would you please put my name on your computer in your spacecraft? And would you put Aunt Susie and cousin so-and-so and so? We were saying that tongue in cheek. They were taking us literally that we had control of the computer and the spacecraft, and they wanted to give all their family names to be put on that computer. But it might be that some of these, Rick Cody said, could it be that next level chip is being blocked? It might be that they have received a chip, and because they believe this information is true, their little young souls, very young souls that just received preschool information from the next level, could be a part of the planting of another civilization. Could be a part of what one of you all might go and task that civilization to nourish some of those little souls. And that's as far as they can get in that space of time.
So, if I got that kind of picture, maybe those individuals like the ones in Shasta have a chip, but it's not supposed to be activated for coming with us. It's just activated to the point of recognizing that
Well,
this
it
is true.
certainly isn't being activated. Whether it's supposed to or not, or has the potential or not, I don't know that. But it'll be up to the ones who are responsible for that experiment to determine, were they really thirsty for this? Do they really want it? Do they really believe it? Then if they do, then we can put them. You know, it's like when Jesus said, all those who believe on me, and some can believe us but can't do it. I mean, we've got a long list of people who believe us but can't do it. If we were in some town where we had a church, we'd have a lot of people come to live in that town and go to our church because they believe it, but they can't do it.
We ran into a couple the other day at a Shasta meeting that Jason and I talked with them, and we thought they were ready to come with us, and yet they didn't even ask, well, how do we stay in touch with you? It was about the only thing they asked, and we gave them a TOA address, and that was the extent. Well, goodbye. And it was just kind of such a...
It doesn't just blow your circuit.
They said, that's exactly what we were thinking.
That's what's in your circuit. Your circuit, you have in your little implant says, I can go with it. I can go all the way with it. And T has said that that's the reason that when they came into our class, we could not treat them as if they could not go all the way with us. That no matter what they had to deal with, we assumed they would not be in our class if they could not finish the task this time.
It took me a long time to recognize that.
That's right.
But they sat there and they agreed with everything, and they said, yeah, that's exactly what we were thinking too, and this just feels so right.
Part of the traveling show keeps on, we were a great show. They're sure talking about
I'm going to talk about you for months and months.
I'm sure we are. They're talking to us right now. I can feel that. Weren't they great when those guys came through with all those new shirts? But no, it's a hot day and they still wore everything, I'm sure. I did. But yeah, that was it.
This young fella talked about how we all had these fancy hairdos.
I read that on the transmission, and I thought, what did they mean by fancy hairdo?
Well, if you'd seen his, you would know.
Writing his bicycle, he got a little bit on tape, and he had this scraggly little dreadlock beard.
Hadn't taken a bath for months.
He was talking to us, it's like he was blaming us for things that he didn't have. like you got a fancy truck over there. Where'd you get that? Is that a donated truck? And how'd you get all that money? You got those fancy haircuts, and it's like he's blaming us for things that he doesn't have. And
If you mentioned the haircuts, I would say, got a few minutes, I'll give you one.
It was strange because it felt like he was coming up with little points where you're not supposed to have anything, and then well, we don't have anything. And when I started agreeing with him, it kind of took his fire away.
That's right.
Well, look for his own. You didn't have something.
No, it's almost like they want us to put on literal, potato sacks and barefooted and go down the street.
And he was angry that we wouldn't give him anything. He said, don't you have some spare change in your car ashtray? He wanted, if we were really who we say we were, we'd be nice and give him.
Well, what was interesting about that person, he's the one that went from Northwest all the way to Medford for the meeting. He was one of the ones that came from Northwest to the Medford. Then he also went to the meeting
He had a lot of friends.
He's the kind that makes it hard for me to want to give him something
Exactly.
because of what he would do for us. He's praying in mind.
When you give someone, they genuinely look like they're hard on their work or they're suffering and doing it to see something. But you don't like these characters that...
The ones that I like to give them something is when I know they're in trouble and they really have a need and I can see that they don't want to tell them. And we've run into those and I couldn't resist helping them. And boy, then their face lights up. It's like, wow, you read my mind. And they didn't say anything. They didn't ask for anything. And yet because you knew they were having a hard time with being in that position. But the ones who are making a living of it, that's it. For no reason other than the living.
Sometimes we tell them that the most valuable thing they have is the information on the poster. Give them a poster.
That's right. Couldn't put a price on it. No amount of money could buy it. Could we?
The individual they're talking about came to our Medford meeting and was passing out his own UFO information,
Right.
which
This
all
is God,
this,
Jesus that's going to come in this world.
and a lot of very strange blather.
They go together.
But-
There's a lot of scattered thoughts.
But one individual I can remember having both pieces of paper was asking questions about material that was on the one that we didn't provide.
He ended up tossing that aside. He said, okay, I can sort of. He was an interesting character himself.
Listen, we got to scoot. We got to be there pretty quick.
Thanks for
You bet.
sharing what you did.
You betcha.